Welcome to this edition of the Garage Area, where this past weekend at Iowa Speedway we saw Ryan Blaney win the Cup Series race and Sam Mayer win the Xfinity Series race. Starting with the Cup Series race, where did it fall in your expectation meter? Do you think that it was better or worse than you anticipated?
Far better. Yeah.
I really thought with the way that the repave was and everything that it wasn't going to race as well as it did, and I thought it raced excellent.
Yeah.
The only blemish on this entire race, I think, was the setup that the teams themselves put in the race cars that caused tires to blow. Um, Outside of that, like I really didn't have anything to complain about.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like tires mattered, or it did. I'm sorry, it did seem like tires mattered, but not just getting them hot. Like it seemed like they actually wore out over a period of time and not just ran 20 laps and then shut off. As
Yeah.
far
I
as the
know what you're
grip went.
saying. Yeah.
Um, the other thing that I don't know if you picked up on this or not, I would say in the last 12 laps or so, I was thinking to myself as Byron was potentially going to run down Blaney. Not once today have I heard dirty air mentioned or, um,
Aero blocking or
aero
something like
blocking.
that.
There's
Yeah.
things related to aerodynamics being a major advantage and being out front being a huge advantage, and that's awesome to me. To have tires matter and aero be a very minimal factor was incredible. Loved every second of that. Glad to see a race like that. Jordan Bianchi mentioned it on the teardown this morning too. That was the case. That you didn't hear anybody talking about that. So that I'm glad to see that other people noticed that too, because I think that was a big part of what made this a good race was both the tires and the aero not mattering.
Yeah.
Uh, Ryan Blaney finally gets a win after having one slip away from him in Gateway after he ran out of fuel in the final lap. And I got to tell you, I was sitting there. Blaney's not my primary driver, but I do enjoy watching him win. And I'm sitting there holding on to the edge of the chair like this, like what's going to happen? Is Byron going to run him down? Is he going to blow a tire? Because you saw people just randomly blowing tires. And when Byron reeled him in a little bit in traffic and Blaney started to gap it back out, I thought, okay, it looks like he's probably holding on to something. It was a really old school race from that perspective, and I thought it was awesome. The repave in the partial corners, all that, it wasn't a factor in a negative way at all. And I thought it was just raced great. I wish we could go back there next week.
Yeah.
New Hampshire's not a track that I'm a big fan of in the first place,
No.
and there's nothing really wrong with it. It's not. It wouldn't matter what car you took there. I wouldn't think this is
Yeah.
going to be about the same product at New Hampshire. Um, and I just wish we could just, you know what, everybody just stay in Iowa and we'll run it again. Yeah, that was really cool. Blaney getting the win, Byron finishing second, Chase Elliott finishing third, Christopher Bell fourth. I mean, these are guys that you would think would be at the top of the sport, elite drivers. These are the kind of guys that the greatness came out in a race like this. Kyle Larson also really, really fast. Got caught up in an incident with Denny Hamlin and ultimately Daniel Suarez, who really caused the wreck, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And he ended up finishing, I think, 34th. So that was my pick for this week. He led 80 laps and ended up finishing way in the back, which was really disappointing. Just because of how fast his car was. And look, I don't need Kyle Larson to win every week. I'm not rooting for that by any means. Just the fact that he was my pick and was that fast, and then ended up with some misfortune was a little disappointing. But yeah, I don't need to see a 5 Hendrick car win every single week. Not interested in that necessarily. But speaking of Hendrick, they did have a really good day, I thought. With Byron second, Chase third. You had Bowman up there in eighth, which is surprising for a hack like him. And obviously, like we said, Larson having the fastest car. Another surprise up there, and it was kind of the way the strategy worked out, allowed him to get the track position to stay up there. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. finishing fifth. Really good run for them. You never thought that they were going to be a factor to win, but they stayed out on old tires and just didn't get shuffled far enough back to be all the way out of it.
Yeah.
And just kind of hung around and got himself a solid top 5 finish. Your pick, Joey Logano, finished sixth. He never looked like a factor to win, but he looked like a solid top 10 car all day. And that was pretty awesome, especially with Josh Berry up there as well. He almost looked like they might, if things worked out, have an opportunity to win the race.
Yeah, they talked after the race that if they chose a different line on the choose line, that things may have worked out differently for them. So
Yeah. I guess that's got to be encouraging for them to just be in a position where you're even being considered to be a factor for the win. with everything that they've got going on inside that building over there. Brad Keselowski finished in 10th. Suarez had a good run in 9th. I think that's pretty much everybody there in the top 10 that we've talked about. Chastain ran well, 11th. Todd Gilliland had a really good run in 12th. And as you mentioned earlier, Justin Haley had a really good day and ended up finishing 13th. But was a top 10 race car a lot of the day.
Yeah. There's some rumors circling now that he might be nabbed for the 21.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because was it Briscoe is being, or not Briscoe.
Harrison Burton.
Who was going to the 19? Was Briscoe?
Yeah, Briscoe.
Yeah, so supposedly that's going to be announced here within a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah?
The rumors are, I heard that on DBC.
Okay.
So, because originally he was the name for the 21.
Briscoe was.
Yeah, and so now they're thinking Justin Haley might get pulled from the 51 to go run the 21. Which I'm surprised at how well this 51's running. Obviously, they got RFK support, and it's like, man, maybe another year with this thing, maybe they'll do something with it. So
yeah,
they've surprised me this year. So.
Absolutely, I would have never thought they'd run this well. They're not just lucking into these finishes either. Like I said, he ran top 10 a lot of the day. What do you think is going to happen to Harrison? I mean, he's out of that car, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's probably looking for an Xfinity or truck ride at this point.
You don't think he gets in a ride like the 34 or anything like that?
Yeah, and I don't know. It's almost looking like maybe Josh Berry or Noah Gragson or something, because they got to another spot, that other weight or charter.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they got 2 cars to fill, so you got Priest and Berry and Gregson, and all 3 of those left. They're expecting a couple of them will be going over to front row.
Right.
You got Custer too, because I think he's still looked at as a available Cup caliber driver. So there's a lot of names out there I think are still better than Harrison.
I think you're probably right. It is kind of odd the amount of success that he did have in the Xfinity Series, and then came to the Cup Series and just was flat, very flat. Granted, that 21 car was not good when he got there, but Penske since then has elevated itself, and he is not elevated with it. Speaking of cars that were not elevated, Kyle Busch finished 35th. Had a top 10 car. It seemed like ran there most of the night and just did not end up getting the finish that they needed to. They had a mechanical failure. I see here it's listed as a water pump failure. I heard Kyle's interview said that next gen parts just break.
Yeah.
And you got to think that dude is frustrated with his season. Got to be second guessing his decision to go to RCR. I know that people are talking about he could go back to JGR, and that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
At least not this year. And from what I understand, he has a a no-talk clause in his contract. Basically, you can't negotiate with other teams while you're under contract. And he's currently under contract through next year also.
RCR saving himself from a Reddick issue, huh?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, I did not see that. But...
Yeah. Speaking of guys also that didn't have a good day, a couple guys that didn't have a good day. I kind of lost him in the shuffle, and I know he hit the wall at one point, but Ty Gibbs finished 25th.
Yeah.
Do you know why he was so far down there, or is it just the wall contact is where he ended up?
I don't know. I didn't really think he hit the wall hard enough to hurt his car, so I just know the only Joe Gibbs car that had any speed was Christopher Bell. Toyota as a whole, I saw Bubba Wallace in the top 10 there briefly, but Tyler Reddick, he wasn't up there or anything else either, so really the only main Toyota that had any speed was Christopher Bell.
Yeah.
And it's kind of his type of racetrack too, so.
Yeah.
I mean.
And I honestly, when I was making my picks for this week, I was debating between Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, and I am glad that I picked Larson, even though he finished worse than Hamlin. But Larson had the fastest car this week, and Hamlin had the biggest piece of junk there was.
Yeah.
And I think Denny's talent itself is the only reason to finish 24th, because he said that thing was just a dump truck all night trying to drive it around the racetrack.
Yeah, he got lucky with one of the caution cycles too, not getting caught a lap down like some other cars did and stuff. So.
Nobody else here really stands out to me as far as having a good or bad day. Ryan Blaney led 201 laps. It's the most laps he's ever led in his career in a single race. Other guys that spent a fair amount of time out front, obviously, are Kyle Larson with 80 laps, Josh Berry with 32. Let's talk a little bit about the cautions that we saw. Really, we saw a lot of flat tires, and we didn't see a lot of cautions for flat tires other than one. And that was, I believe it was Daniel Hemrick that...
But he didn't even have a flat tire. He just scraped the wall.
Oh, really? I thought it was a tire issue which caused him to be in the wall.
All of his tires were up. I think he just got out of the lane.
And NASCAR did end up throwing a yellow flag for that, which seemed a little unwarranted.
Yeah, they threw it quickly because I think they thought it was much worse than what it was.
Yeah.
It was almost like an instantaneous caution. So
yeah, that was... Adam Stevens was flipping out on the radio about it.
Yeah.
Saying that was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever seen, and I am paraphrasing a lot there. And yeah, I agree. Based on if the Eric Jones caution, or if the Eric Jones incident didn't warrant a caution, where he had a flat tire, he was flying down the racetrack in front of other cars, got it to the apron, and then didn't quite get it turned in 3 and 4, and kind of washed back up onto the racetrack, and then back down to the apron. If that didn't warrant a caution, I don't see why Hemrick's issue did, but...
Yeah, Allmendinger, I think earlier in stage 1, he brought out a caution too from a tire issue. So.
Yeah, but he hit the wall pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'm not too sure. Did he drive it back to pit road?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there was debris from that one. I mean, he smacked the wall for sure. As far as the point standings go, Kyle Larson, with the performance that he had, and ended up spending several laps in the garage due to the fact, I don't know if we ever actually said that he got wrecked. Yeah, well, I guess we did say that.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. He spent several laps in the garage getting that thing fixed, and then made it back out on the racetrack. He is now 8 points out of the lead to Chase Elliott, who has, we said it last week, quietly just keeps putting good runs together.
Yeah.
And he's just been able to keep moving his way forward and climbing up the standings. Even with Denny's bad day, he's still hanging on to third. Byron had a good day. He's up there in fourth. Mr. Retirement, Martin Truex Jr. up there in fifth. Reddick, Blaney, Bell, Keselowski, Chastain are the top 10. And Blaney now with this win is what really vaults him into the playoff picture, as he had not won a race yet. Let's talk a little bit about the Denny Hamlin bracket and the matchups that we have there. I ended up picking Keselowski over Logano this week, and it didn't work out. I had Brad Keselowski as my champion in the bracket, and apparently he decided to take an off week this week. Didn't work out. I'm happy that Logano finished in 6th as he did, but Keselowski finished 10th, and that is going to allow Joey to move on in the bracket. And I'm really... do you know what the other matchups are for New Hampshire? There's 4 total, right?
There'll be 2 matchups, and then...
Okay, I'm looking at Iowa still. Okay, so there's 2 matchups.
It'll be Joey versus Chase Elliott.
Okay.
And it'll be Chastain versus Tyler Reddick to find the final 2.
Okay.
And I have nobody left, so...
I have only got Tyler Reddick left. That's the only person that I have.
Yeah.
And I did not have him in the championship round. So currently in the standings for the bracket, I am ranked 4,047th out of 38,000 brackets or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's not great, but as I was telling you earlier, I'm basically in the top 5 if we were splitting this into a Cup Series field. Having a good points day, if nothing else. So yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on those matchups with Logano and Chase, and I would assume, I don't know, Joey's won at that racetrack before.
Yeah.
A couple times, I think. I don't know how Chase's performance is there.
I feel like that's one of the tracks he struggles at.
And you said it was Reddick and who?
Chastain.
Reddick and Chastain.
That's going to be...
I want to get good matchups this week. I could give the nod to Chastain in that one almost. Yeah.
Reddick has not been running as well as I had.
No, Chastain's been running better lately. Yeah. So it's really difficult to tell on that one as far as who we think is going to pull that one out. Hopefully, for Toyota's sake, that they have a little better day than they did today. As you said, they weren't a factor at all. Let's talk a little bit about the Xfinity Series race, unless you had something else to say about the Cup Series.
No,
the Xfinity Series saw Sam Mayer get the win, do that cheesy little Superman celebration that he does. Sam Mayer is the furthest thing from Superman that I can think of.
Yeah.
In any capacity, I feel like I could fold him up and put him in my pocket. Riley Herbst ended up finishing second. They had a pretty good race there at the end, and Mayer came out on top. Herbst was upset with Mayer from something that took place earlier in the race, and NBC got this really good shot of Mayer up there, opening the driver's suit, standing on top of the car, facing the crowd, and Herbst is just taking his helmet off, shaking his head. I don't know. I don't really know why Herbst was mad after the race if this incident took place earlier in the race, and we really don't even know what the incident was.
Yeah. Sam Mayer drove in there hard and ran Riley up the track out of the groove. That was what happened.
That's just called racing, in my opinion. I mean, it wasn't anything to do with the finish of the race.
Yeah.
So why Herbst was still upset about that, I don't really know. They were both there at the end. I feel like whatever happened before that, it happened, and you just move on from that. Chandler Smith led 131 laps on the day. That appears to be the most based on what I've seen. John Hunter Nemechek led 35. He was in a wreck. And Justin Allgaier led 14, also in a wreck. It looks like...
Yeah, when the tires went with these cars, they went.
Yeah.
A lot of guys hit the wall in this race, so...
Yeah, there was, let's see. I know that there was 9 cautions in the Cup race, and it looks like, there's 9 cautions in this race for 71 laps. That's a lot of laps to run under caution.
Yeah.
Only 8 cautions in the Cup race, but yeah, 9 in this one, and a lot of those were for accidents, and in fact, one of them being an accident that ended stage 1 and an accident that ended stage 2. So the stages came to a close with accidents. 28.1% of the race run under caution. Not really a necessary stat, but just something that I like to pay attention to every once in a while. Yeah, I don't really have a ton from this race. I thought it was a good race.
Yeah.
Again, would have liked to have seen less tire failure than we saw, but still a good one overall. As we saw Sam Mayer win, Corey Heim ended up finishing third. I believe that was somebody you said to keep your eye on for this particular race in the Xfinity Series, and he ended up finishing third. I think I had John Hunter Nemechek, who looked like he was going to run really well, but ended up getting caught up in that wreck.
Yeah,
so
him and his teammate Sheldon Creed got together. And
Sheldon Creed is...
Yeah. Sheldon Creed and teammates are something.
Sheldon Creed and Austin Hill were made for each other. I don't know why they ever left RCR, because they were just so perfectly hateable together. Sheldon ends up finishing 5th. Matt DiBenedetto ended up finishing 7th. That was a good run for him. Ross Chastain was in the 92 for Mario Goslin, and he ended up finishing 9th. Daniel Dye, a Truck Series regular, finished 10th. Parker Kligerman, 11th. Leland Honeyman finished 13th. And that looks like the main guys that I thought needed to be pointed out. Everybody else was pretty well expected to be there in the top 10, I would say. I guess the other one I'd point out is Ryan Ellis. A part-time driver, ends up finishing 14th in this one. And granted, that is through some attrition as well, but that's a good run for him. I guess that's really it from the Xfinity Series. If we take a look at the points, Cole Custer is now on top over Chandler Smith by 1 point, and Austin Hill is 41 points back. That followed by Justin Allgaier, and Jesse Love and Sheldon Creed are tied for 5th. At 105 points back, and narrowly behind them is Riley Herbst at 106 points back. So the Xfinity Series points are pretty tight outside of the actual, really all the way down through there is pretty tight. So that's going to be a good one for them too as they continue to do battle here week in and week out. I don't know if they go to New Hampshire or not. I would think they must, because I don't think the trucks are in action until the following week.
Yeah.
I could look that up really quick here, if possible. The race is on between us. Schedule.
I got an ad.
You got an ad?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. I don't know. NASCAR's website is annoying at times. The Cup Series is definitely going to New Hampshire next week. The Xfinity Series is also going to New Hampshire next week.
Yeah, I just got it.
So yes, that is going to be Saturday at 3:30. That you'll see the Xfinity cars on track in New Hampshire, and then the Cup cars They will obviously be Sunday, also at New Hampshire. I'm waiting for the time to load at 2:30, and that's going to be on USA. What did you think of the broadcast coverage with NBC compared to Fox?
I thought it was better.
Yeah, I thought it was better
There's
too.
only one little instance I got annoyed. Obviously they're going to talk about Truex when his retirement or whatever, but I felt like we're three or four laps there. They had the cameras just on him, and I'm watching the leaderboard, people passing each other. I'm like, what's going on out there? But I think that, and they were like, I saw one incident happening, like it felt like 30 seconds before they finally covered it. But other than that, they'd have three screens showing action at three different parts of the race and stuff, and I think their angles were a lot better than Fox. But
they seem to be right up on it. I don't know that I really needed the reporters on the pit box with the crew chiefs.
Yeah.
Not that there was anything wrong with it. I didn't. If they were floating around with different crew chiefs, that'd be one thing, and I'm sure that's hard to do to get crew chiefs to agree to that during the race.
Yeah.
But to have so much coverage with just certain drivers, I thought was a little unnecessary. But I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
A little weird to not have Dale Jr. there. Miss hearing somebody say slide job, but outside of that, I thought that they actually did a really good job. Letarte does a good job in the booth for sure. Anything else from this week that you wanted to talk about at all?
That's all I can think of.
That's all I had. I thought it was really good racing across the board from Iowa this weekend. Was a little skeptical of what that was going to be like coming into it, but my expectations were certainly exceeded.
Yeah.
I saw last I checked, Jeff Gluck's poll was 92%. People said that it was a good race, which is good. We like to see people voting in favor of good races. Glad to see that people are on the same page. Speaking of online feedback, I read somewhere this week that Fox had no idea that people were that upset with their broadcasts, and it's like how are you not paying any more attention than that?
It's funny seeing some of the memes that now the IndyCar is going strictly straight to Fox, and they're putting NASCAR fans are happy for NBC, and they're all those shocked faces or scared faces now that everything's on Fox. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
It certainly will. Well, we thank you guys for watching, listening, tuning in any capacity. We appreciate you following us on X, which is really Twitter, at the Garage Area, and on TikTok and Instagram as well. And we hope that you'll come back next week as we talk about New Hampshire.